Hello and welcome to a video on the long-term causes of the American Civil War. The task to accompany this video is based on something that was said by President Abraham Lincoln in 1865. He tried to explain the conflict between the North and the South and pointed to the fact that it was the growing power of the slaveholders. However, there is no single explanation as to why the American Civil War broke out, and in fact many factors contributed, for example economic differences and political differences. So to investigate this further then, across a double page you need to create this grid. As we continue through this video, you will add evidence to agree and to disagree with this statement. Slavery divided America and caused the American Civil War. So pause this video and take a double page in your book to create this grid, adding all the headings and titles. So the long-term causes of the American Civil War can be divided into three clear causes. We have the North and South economic differences, we have Clay's Compromise of 1850, and also the work of abolitionists. You will have seen this before if you have created the mind map and title page, and this slide just gives you a very easy overview of the key long-term causes. So the first long-term underlying cause of the American Civil War is the economic divisions between the North and South over slavery. Now this is something that's not new to our course, and we have been learning about this since we pretty much started learning about the making of America, and that is the attitudes of the South and the North towards slavery. To give you a quick overview, the South relied solely on slavery for their economy, and the Northern economy was a mixed economy. They would rely on some of the raw materials from the South to help produce manufactured goods in the factories. We're now going to zoom in and just have a little look at some of the key differences. So the South believed that slavery was natural, and actually capitalist businesses were forcing white workers into wage slaves. So slavery in the sense of they are working for wages that are controlled by business people. The North thought their economy was a modern capitalist business system which allowed people to set up businesses if they wanted to. The South was dominated by large plantations and they had no factories or industry. The North actually made money from processing and manufacturing cotton. In the South, it was semi-modern plantation system. However, the plantations were only owned by a few slave owners or plantation owners. In the North, they believed slavery was unfair competition for business because slaves were not paid. In the South, they made money through slave labour. In the North, they had a mixed economy, as I said, and they had some aspects which were farming, there were small businesses, and there were large factory owners as well. Based on this factor and the economic differences between the North and the South, which side of your grid do you think this is going to go on? Do you think it is going to prove that slavery did divide America and cause the American Civil War, or is it evidence against? Take a moment to pause and have a think. So I've actually put economic differences in the North and South across the middle because it is quite obviously motivated by slavery. Slavery is causing the differences in their economies, but it also is an economic reason that's causing division with them. So if you think of slavery as the underlying reason behind this, if you would prefer to pop it onto evidence to agree, that is also fine. So the task now then is to complete the sentence starter, which is the economic differences between the North and South divided America and caused a civil war because. So you are adding the explanation to the evidence. So here is my waggle. It says the economic differences between the North and South divided America and caused a civil war because the South relied on slavery for their economy, whereas the North didn't, as it had a mixed economy. The North also saw slavery as unfair competition, as the South didn't have to pay their workers. Hopefully you've got something similar. If you haven't, or you've missed anything that I've added, or you want to steal this, then feel free to. So as you can see, the beliefs about slavery in the North and South really did differ. And this was exacerbated by the work of the abolitionists, which gained momentum in 1850. This slide just shows a couple of examples of people that you might recognise, such as William Lloyd Garrison, who founded the Liberator in 1831. The one that I'm going to focus on for the moment is the Northern abolitionists of Douglas and Harriet Tubman, who were freed slaves. They helped slaves to escape from their masters in a system of underground railroads in which they freed slaves from plantations and took them to be free in the North, where obviously slavery was banned. This would ultimately lead to Clay's Compromise and the Fugitive Slave Act, but again this helps to build up tension between the South and the North, because the South believed that the North were collaborating with Tubman in order to free these slaves. So abolitionists are quite obviously evident to agree that slavery divided America and caused the American Civil War. And your sentence starter is very similar to the first one. It says the work of abolitionists divided America and caused a civil war because. So you need to now pause the video and fill in that gap with some specific evidence. So here is my waggle that you can add to yours from, or you can steal if you struggled with this one. So it says the work of abolitionists divided America and caused a civil war by 1850 because they had grown in strength thanks to various actions by different groups and individuals. For example, Douglas and Harriet Tubman freed slaves to the North, angering the slaveholders in the South. So final reason then is Henry Clay's Compromise. And this all began because the Southerners were worried that they were losing influence in American politics and society because the population of the North was growing quite quickly. And a number of representatives in Congress were determined by a state's population. As we said, the slaves represented 3/5 of a person. That is something we've learned about in the past. So as the northern populations grew, the northern states were allocated more representatives, therefore having more political power. So Henry Clay, a pro-slavery politician, came up with a compromise to ease the problem in 1850. And he said that California should enter the United States, but as a non-slavery state. The sale of slaves should be banned in Washington, D.C., the nation's capital. And territories that had recently been added, such as New Mexico and Utah, were able to vote on whether they wanted slavery or not. This would therefore mean that beyond the current westward expansion, so up until New Mexico and Utah, slavery had been added because of the Missouri Compromise, one slave state, one free state, but this therefore means that slavery will continue to expand. So this is pleasing the South and angering the North. Finally, all the states and national government had to accept something known as the Fugitive Slave Act, which meant that if any slaves were found in the North, they had to be returned to the slave owners in the South. So have a think about which side of your grid Henry Clay's Compromise goes on, and take a moment to pause this video. So I've popped Clay's Compromise across the middle again, and that's because Clay's Compromise is a political reason why the American Civil War broke out. It's because of political power and the lack of political power that the South had. However, it's also, again, related to slavery because the previous Missouri Compromise meant that a slave only represented 3/5 of a person, which is why the North's population meant that they had bigger power in Congress. So like I said, I've popped it across the middle. You can pop it wherever you want. Again, you've got a sentence starter there for you, and it says the passing of Clay's Compromise divided America and caused the Civil War because. So pause this video and fill in that gap. And here is my waggle. So my sentence starter is completed with the passing of Clay's Compromise divided America and caused the Civil War because in 1846 Congress said that slavery should be banned in the new territories of Mexico. The compromise said New Mexico and Utah could be slave states if they voted for it, and it meant westward expansion would lead to further slavery. The government also had to accept the Fugitive Slave Act to undoing the work of the Underground Railroad. If you would like to steal this for your work or improve your answer by using this waggle, then pause the video and please feel free to do so. To conclude then, the North and South economic differences show that slavery was an underlying cause as well as an economic cause of the American Civil War. Clay's Compromise shows to us that political power was an important cause of the American Civil War. However, again, this is underpinned by tensions risen by the differences between the North and South and their attitudes towards slavery. Finally, abolitionists and their approach to wanting to ban slavery caused more tension between the North and South and is therefore a reason that agrees that slavery was to blame for the American Civil War.